All right, everyone that is out in the virtual world, I hope you can hear us. We have the speaker on. We're going to start with some introductions. Then I think I'm going to show a couple slides on a PowerPoint. I'll see how the crowd's feeling. And then we also have a video, a draft of one that we wanted to show you. And then we can open it up for, I guess, other questions or concerns or areas that you wanted to get some more information on. Okay. But to begin, you have to mute yours, Ms. Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. To begin, I can tell you about myself because I haven't met all of you. A few of you I have, and it's been a pleasure. I'm Brandon Moeller, and I started here in the district, let me see, in September. And it was great moving up here. I enjoy being up here so much because I wanted to get back to where I grew up. I grew up in Montana. So getting back to an area that at least reminds me of that and has that type of community is something that we really wanted for our kids. So we're up here now and we're enjoying it. As far as my background, I went to school at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I started my career in criminal justice and psychology. I wanted to become a U.S. Marshal. That was my original dream. And I focused on that quite a bit. And I applied for it, and I didn't hear anything for a long time. And then I took a job with the city working for neglected and abused children. And I really got attached to working with young kids and helping them out. And about the time that I was really moving forward in that, I got a call that said, "You've made it and you can come to Virginia and get in the U.S. Marshal program." But I switched gears at that point. I'd already knew what I wanted to do. So I got into education and I told them no. And I went this route and it's been great. So from there, I went back to school. I got my degrees in education and my master's. And right now I'm working on my doctorate and I hope to be done with that. It is a lot of work and I want it done, but we'll see where that goes. Throughout my career, I've worked at elementary schools has been my focus, but I've worked in middle schools and high schools. I started as an elementary teacher. Then I worked for the state for what they call the Regional Professional Development Program, where you're providing professional development, school improvement plan, and support to all the schools in the state. And I did that for a while. And then I came back to the district and I worked in curriculum and professional development, providing more professional development instructional strategies. And then I moved into safe and respectful learning environments. This was at the time when bullying just started. I don't know if you guys remember that. It kind of kicked up and it was in the news. And I had to help roll out some of the policies and laws that were associated with that, on top of providing professional learning on that. And that led me after that to working as a director for the Equity and Diversity Education Department, and that's kind of been my whole span. I've kind of done a little bit of everything, and it's been a great career, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly. But I just wanted you to let know a little bit about me, of where I've been and who am I, who is this guy that's up here talking. And tonight, I know that everyone wanted to hear a little bit more about where we're at with procedures, policy, and the district's annual plan related to highly capable students. So I guess I'll start a little bit with this PowerPoint and then we'll see if we want to go into um, the video or maybe we won't. We'll see what works for everyone. And I hope this works again like it did before and everyone can see the presentation. Can you see it, Ms. Cooper? Okay, thank you. So first wanted to start out, I already started with introductions. I also wanted to go into some of the policies and procedures just so we know. There's a few that are out there. We've got one policy that's over highly capable, and that's the one on the very left over here. It's very general, just gives 4 points, mainly kind of restates law that we are going to provide highly capable services per the state funding for students. That's kind of all that says. And then we have in the middle there the procedure 2190. That's usually more explicit. It has a lot more detail in it. And then the third part is the district annual plan. And the district annual plan has even more information in it. So you can see it kind of tears itself out or spreads itself out. Tonight, I know people wanted to know about 2190 and where we're at with it. And then I was going to give an overview via the presentation of what the annual plan could be and what I'll be presenting on Monday to the district for review. And that's kind of where we're at. So as far as policy or procedure 2190, we had a task force come together to work on that. Some of you here were part of that task force, so thank you for working on it. We had a lot of work to do, and people read a lot of stuff, studied a lot. I heard quite a bit about I have to read so much, and I'm like, yes. When you see some of these procedures and stuff, they look simple. It's like, oh, that's only a paragraph. That should only take an hour or two to whip that out or something like that. It's a lot of studying. It's a lot of background research that you have to do, and everyone really worked hard on it. So I just want to commend all them for their efforts in that area. And we ended up putting the procedure together. That should be posted. Actually, I think today they posted it for Monday. So if you want to look at it, I didn't make a bunch of copies because it's online now. And I believe the district plan that I'm going to be talking about is online now available. So that's the only reason I didn't post it and push the button and see it. The procedure changed as far as we focused on ensuring that we provided tiered interventions for students that are highly capable. We noticed, because we also did a district-wide survey, the task force looked at that data, and that data from the district-wide survey helped guide us on what we felt we needed to change within the procedure. And we also looked at about, what is it, 15 or so different districts here in the state, ones that the committee brought forward, and also one that was on a prior research that was done. So we had a summation of all of what they did, and we looked at all that information too. That was then compiled into different versions of the procedure. I think we had 3 or 4 different types that we wrote, and we finally ended up synthesizing that down to the one that was submitted. But the introduction pretty much outlines the overview that we will support highly capable students. We will ensure that we're meeting their needs at a social emotional learning level, and that we'll be sure that we're meeting their needs at whatever different tier they happen to be on as far as their ability level. We made sure that we put in there universal assessments, that we looked at providing progress monitoring. So we're always monitoring the students, seeing where they're at and providing feedback. That we included the multidisciplinary selection committee, which was another part of it. And that was also created this year. And the multidisciplinary selection committee, their goal is to help work on getting the assessment put together throughout the whole year, and also looking at the criteria and looking at the identification process for students who could come into or potentially be a highly capable student. So all of this stuff was going on as the procedure was being written, and those components were put together to make the procedure. The other part that we put in there was transferring. So if you're transferring from military or for another school district, we outlined the steps associated with that. And we also made sure that there was an exit process. Sometimes people get into the program and they find it's not a good fit, um, and they want to exit. And so we made sure that we outlined that and the steps associated with that. And then the last part of it is that there has to be annual reporting, which brings us back to the annual district plan, which is a big circular process that we have to do in order to contain or order to maintain our funding with the state. But that's like the big overview of the procedure, just to give you some of those big steps of it. But that's basically, when you read through it, it's not a lot of detail because policies and procedures usually don't. They're kind of dry. They give you kind of the big idea. The rolling out and all of that, that comes into the instructional process of it. And you see that in the classrooms with the different curriculum and instructional practices that are put into place. Okay, any questions thus far?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So the procedures is like the requirements or the generic rules associated with programs, that my understanding.
Yes, yeah,
And the
so
policy is touching on what the state's requirements of the district are.
yeah, yes to both. They kind of overlap. The way I've always put it in my head is one is very minimal and general about the state laws. You have to service and provide services to highly capable students, and you have to make sure that you notify parents and you engage them, and here's the laws that are associated with that. And you have to report out. It's very brief. That's why it's only that little section. And then it lists all the laws associated with it. It's like, you got stuff to do. The procedure goes a little bit more in depth. How are you going to do it? Give us the big buckets. And so, like I listed out there, there's about 5 big buckets that are in the procedure. The universal assessment, identifying them, multidisciplinary selection committee, a tiered process, an exit process, an appeal process. That kind of bullets that out in the procedure a little bit more detail, aligning it to law. And then after that, you go into a school district and they have different guidelines or operational things for instruction. And that's where it takes off into the detail about the instructional
And
practices.
that's part of the procedure.
No,
That's part of the plan.
it has aspects of it. The instructional practices really drill into what's being provided by the standards and what's being set up by the district as what is the instructional curriculum being used. It gets more in depth in that area.
Okay. I'm just curious to know like what potential incoming Hicap parents are being provided
Mhm.
on a consistent year-to-year basis to help us understand what the program is supposed to be ran
Yep.
as.
No, that's great because that's another thing that the survey let us know is that whatever is out there right now, which seems to be minimal, because I started in September and my first goal was just to assess and really see what's going on first and put together teams, which we did, and committees to work on this. But a lot of the stuff that came back is there isn't a lot of detail out there. There isn't a lot of notification or processes. It's kind of here and there or scattered. You know what I mean? So we need to have it put together in almost like a little handbook that's nice and detailed that you can see on the website. We can hand out to you. Maybe you get in a tri-folder that has it kind of summarized. And we have it in multiple formats because it doesn't seem like it's out there right now.
Well, they did have a handbook before, so I'm
Okay.
just curious if your goal with this is to expand on the handbook that was out there previously.
The
But it's
handbook,
not out there anymore.
I looked at that and that did need to be updated. So yes, it would be updating that, adding the new items that are outlined by the law and getting that back out to parents. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So regarding this 2190, October 2nd, 2023, which is like right after you joined, I think,
Mhm.
we received an email and it said the 2190s being revised to be in compliance with state law, which implies it was out of compliance with state law. I've read those laws and the 5 points you brought up, they all refer to the selection and the finding of students, maybe the diamonds in the rough or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
But the complaints that people seem to have, I don't think anyone really is concerned about. I mean, we want everyone to get the help that they need if they need something, or wherever the diamonds are, let's find them.
Mhm.
But the complaints seem to be around the implementation of the learning process or whatever you want to call it, which I don't believe the legal references tell you what to do.
Yeah,
So
they're
what I'm
vague.
saying,
Yeah,
so what I'm
you're right.
saying is that you implied that we were out of compliance, but the change that it seems to have been made is we're going to change how we teach students, which is not part of the law. Like the law doesn't say we have to have contained or uncontained or whatever. So you've talked a lot about how do we get kids fairly? Yeah, that's awesome. I want that.
Mhm.
But the complaint seems to have been all along, how are we going to teach these kids once we find them? And that seems to be what the big change is. What were we doing that was unfair before? Like, can you actually tell me what we were doing that was like stopping someone from joining Hicap? Because that's awful for those kids, I guess. But I don't understand. This is just a very vague email that just justified kiboshing the whole previous system under the guise of changing the fairness of entry, which, like, really, we were being unfair? That's how?
Okay.
Can you tell me, because you came into the old system, you could say, oh, this is a point that I didn't, that was wrong. Give me an example. What was wrong about the old system?
Okay, so with the law, we had to do universal assessment. That was new, like you said, that had to be outlined, and we have to make sure that, again, we're reaching all the students and that we're providing services. So what we found out, again, through the district-wide survey, is students were getting services primarily at identified schools that were the self-contained, that were providing those services. Those who elected either not to go to those and were in the other schools, they were not receiving any services. And you can't do that. So we had to sit there and look at, like you said, the instruction or the reaching or how we're going to involve those students because we cannot leave them without getting services. And you cannot have a system too where you say, you get this, you either take this or you don't get nothing. You can't do that. That's illegal. So those are the things that we were looking at. Number two is we looked at the budget. The budget was an area of concern that came up. And looking at the prior model, money primarily went to two schools, and there was a lot spent on staffing of that. Well, if all the money is going to two schools and staffing, nothing can be done to the people that are outside of those two schools as far as support and services again to students.
The staffing
So-
was only getting paid out in the 22-23 school year. Prior to that, there was no money coming out of
Okay.
Hicap for staffing.
So again, yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
Those were the precursors of we've got to look at making sure that we're reaching all those kids. You know, we can't do it this way, can't do it that way. How are we going to do it? And again, that's where we brought the committee together. Again, the multidisciplinary committee and the task force, and we started discussing what can we do. And this was the plan that everyone pretty much came up with for the most part.
So it seems like, I understand what you're saying, that some kids said, the parents said, my kid can't go to school. It's not gonna work for us. So now my kid's not gonna be part of Hicap, and they're gonna miss out on the growth they could have had. So you're saying it couldn't be take it or leave it. Is the new program still though creating a take it or leave it for other students? Because I struggle to see how the benefits that were being given to the kids who did choose to go could be matched. Or let's say do better than. So I feel like no matter what, it's a step down for the kids who did choose to participate. And that's my concern is I've been to school, I had teachers who struggled to
Mhm.
keep us all together, and adding more, like, you got kids who are in the middle of the bell curve, and there's kids on both sides. We have both in our family. We have a kid who needs extra help on the other end.
Yep.
So if we put them all in the same classroom, it would really strain that teacher. And I'm concerned to like how's my Hicap kid gonna thrive in the new system? I don't feel good about that. That's my concern. I don't feel good about that.
Okay, that's valid. That's valid. Anything else? And then I'll go into a little bit more in depth so we can answer some of those because I think some of them of your questions will be answered when I go a little bit further into what I'm going to show. But anything else right now? Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry, I skipped some.
I was just
Yes.
wondering if you were gonna go into detail about the class configuration tonight, and what the proposal is for creating high-cap classes.
A little bit. We have some service models that were outlined by the different committees that I'll go into. I can't get into this specific enrollment because that's more of a school site um, item that's looked at. And I don't have those enrollment numbers, you know, so, but that's a little bit on the side.
Plan how that's gonna be arranged though, correct?
No, I don't get
So
in that
why not?
detail. Because again, it's based on that specific school and what they need to do to meet the needs and the demographics there.
So I can speak to that because I work at Pinewood, so I know what the dynamics are for our enrollment.
Mhm.
And we've already been told that gen ed kids will be going into Hicap classes next year
Then it will be a mix.
based on the current enrollment in Hicap and in gen ed, because our gen ed classes are in overload and they don't want to pay overload, so they're going to shift kids into Hicap. And I agree 100% when you're talking about it's no longer a Hicap model, it's now a split class. And all of us know that a split class is not beneficial to students. In fact, it's written into our MEA contract that the district will avoid it when possible. But I know that the budget is the biggest concern right now.
Yeah.
But we are pushing back, I'm pushing back,
Mhm.
that the gen ed kids also suffer.
Yes, they do.
Because they are the ones now being forced to do a split class at two schools. I don't know about Liberty for sure, but I know Pinewood, our kids, because we house Hicap, are the ones being forced to do a split class. And I don't think that's equitable.
For the Hicap kids or the gen ed.
Either
Yeah.
one.
Right, I think
It's more damaging for the kids who know, you know what, I can't keep up with all of my classmates. I must not be a learner, which absolutely is not true.
Sets them up for failure.
It
Yeah.
does, like, so, yeah, that's the one loophole that, that I asked you not to allow in the policy. That we
So,
have to have a
it's not in a
program
policy.
model.
it is in the policy.
But you can't
Oh,
say,
it's fine.
I read it
it's just gonna
today.
be based on the numbers. We can't say it's based on the numbers.
No.
It has to be based on what the children need.
If it was numbers, and you could float any number you wanted to, it's just not right, either way you look at it.
Now, we
So
do
if
have to
you-
fix that
If
before
you,
Monday.
Brandon, have to go up in front of your bosses and explain to them,
Mhm.
and be a little bit of the law enforcement side of yourself, and a parent and stuff,
Mhm.
it's just not fair across the board. For the teachers too,
No,
it's very upsetting to be a parent, to go into a classroom, to know that the teacher has no say-so whatsoever at all. Or maybe they do with that look on your face, they do.
I'm thinking, so go ahead.
Okay.
I'm thinking.
So if you're told to do something from the higher up, you're gonna do it. And that's not fair to anybody, from the teachers down to the students. You put a high cap in with a regular student, and I'm not trying to be mean, that is very unfair. And to say that, okay, it cripples a lot of steps there on both ends, however you want to look at it, top to bottom. Take your smartest student out of the class, take your not so smart student. That's a big gap. And you throw fourth and fifth gen ed, I mean, it might as well be a small college. And if you're going based on the numbers, I've seen this before, it's gotta be better than just numbers. There's 30 people to a classroom now. It's crazy. It really is. It's not fair to
What
anyone.
teacher wants that job?
Well, the current model that you have in place at Pinewood is not a well-functioning model. And it is clearly written in there that it will be self-contained unless the need to fix a numbers problem is determined.
Mhm.
And we
talked
have a
about that
numbers
in the task
problem.
force meeting.
Yeah,
And I think we need to start with transparency, because we have a teacher who's been teaching a 1-2 high cap split all year, that then you guys threw second grade gen ed kids into her classroom. And now she's effectively trying to teach 3 different levels of kids and was never provided any support to do so. And I think the bottom line is, where we need to start is what's best for kids.
Mhm. No,
And
I
that's
agree.
not where we're starting from here. And my other question is, you said universal screenings. There's always been universal screenings done for high cap. So I'm kind of questioning where
Well-
you said that we need to do universal screenings.
Let me do
Okay,
this.
But there was universal screenings before. And my concern is, one of the things that you said in your plan is WIDA for identifying ML students to enter the program. WIDA is not a program that identifies kids to be highly capable for the program.
It can be, yes, it can.
Not really, it's a language acquisition program, Amy, and the
Well,
majority
we
of students
can,
have it.
we
I
can,
didn't know.
I can meet with you on that. Let's do this, because I know some other parents kind of want to hear
No,
the overview of the plan. We kind of got stuck, but we'll come back because we got time. Let me go through the other steps and we can always chime back in, okay? But I want to make sure that I at least present what's here. Is that okay? And I'm hearing everything you're saying, believe me. Let me see. We are going to go over our other policy, which I know you guys know, just that we treat each other with respect, which I know we will and we have. That's just a standard. I already went through this. The other thing I was going to let everyone know is the people that were involved with this process. It wasn't, again, just me. I called as many people as I could. So we had OSPI give us some feedback on different aspects. We talked to the University of Washington, the Washington Association of Educators of Talented and Gifted, Whitworth University, and then some of our neighboring school districts, their Hicap program and their directors and coordinators were also giving feedback on different areas. We also connected with the Montana Department of Education's Gifted and Talented, Texas Education Agency, and then also Purdue University. And lastly, the University of Las Vegas, their gifted and gated program looked over what we had put together and provided feedback in these areas. So we wanted to make sure that we were reaching everyone and trying to get a big view on where the research is going and what are the areas that we can focus on to improve or to benefit from. The other thing that we wanted to make sure of is that when we put our any program together, again, with the best interest of the students, that we're looking at what are the areas that they are unique in. And for our highly capable students, we know that they seem to grasp stuff really quickly. They learn in a unique way. They just eat up knowledge left and right. And we have to be sure that we're providing those services to them. So one of the areas that we wanted to try to focus on is as we're working on this
And
together,
I don't think you're showing these slides to the virtual people.
it's not coming up.
I'm seeing your regular slide as if you're in.
It's still stuck in that?
Yeah.
Mm.
You might have to just not share and then share again.
Yeah, I know. This thing's been bothering me. It was working just a minute ago. Well, I'll just go out the side then, right here.
There it is.
I'll just do it from here then. You can still see it though, right?
Yes.
I'll just do it that way. Then I don't have to worry about fiddling back and forth. Just let me find out where I was.
Perfect.
So what we are looking at is coming up with an acronym, a term that kind of pulls us all together, that has our focus, that also ensures that we're working towards meeting the students' needs and everyone's needs. And one of that is that we're working towards stretching their potential. We're working towards providing them tailored learning. We're making sure that we're amplifying the resources that we're giving them so they can meet their curiosity and their needs. The learning is rigorous, and that we're having shared collaboration and mentorship as we're doing this. That's the way learning occurs, is we have those opportunities to work with each other and work on the project together. The other thing that we established is foundational pillars. So we have this big vision. What are the big constructs that are going to help us get there? And that's making sure that, again, we're appropriately identifying all students, that the instruction is high quality, which you were speaking of, that there's tiered interventions and supports, which means you're meeting every student at their need, because they're different, even among highly capable students. Even if they're all highly capable, all in the same grade level, that span is still differentiated that wide. It's not, they're all together and they all learn at the same rate. It really is a broad band, and we have to get ready to support that. And then making sure that there are, of course, opportunities and career pathways for them, something that's guiding them towards their interest and guiding them towards the future so they're ready for the 21st century. So those are our foundational pillars. And then we wanted to set some goals. So we have some pillars, we have a big emblem that kind of puts it in our mind where we want to go, but what are the goals that we have to kind of put in place to get there? And the big one is that we would provide professional development to our teachers because they need that support. As you said, it hasn't been happening, so we need to do that, right? We can't have great instruction in the classroom or high quality instruction in the classroom if we're not teaching our teachers and giving them the resources. So that was number one. And I got that again from all the discussions that I've heard from all of you and from the district-wide survey. And the other part was, again, making sure that we're including all of our highly capable students, not leaving anyone out. And we're cultivating a collaborative learning community, which is this right here too. That stuff isn't being done in isolation. There's committees, there's work, people's voices are heard, everyone's being included in the process. So those are our 3 strategic goals that we've established thus far. And going back to the discussion about the budget, we redesigned the budget so the focus would be exactly on professional development. And I know that looks kind of tiny, but what that's basically saying is 1% towards cognitive assessment, 35% going to professional learning, teachers and instructional materials, 4%, printing and labeling, if we have to put that together, we'll see. But you have to kind of allocate some of this just in case. 2.2%, miscellaneous 2.2%, personnel 36%, indirect cost, which always comes out of any grant, 17.6%. It shows you the spread of where the funding is going, and that's drastically different than how it was done before. And you can see that the focus of that money aligns to what the district-wide survey was outlining and trying to support those goals and those foundational pillars. Yes.
Where's the transportation in the budget?
That isn't supposed to be coming out of the.
So no, that's a good yeah, that's a good question. Thank you for bringing that up. It was something that was of a cost of some point. We worked on that. We had worked with transportation, and transportation did a great work on that and was able to get that put within a statewide, I guess, grant or application or something like that. So it's being covered right now. So
It's being covered out of another grant, not from.
yeah, it's with our transportation costs. So it's covered under that, which is great. And we were able to get that done. So that takes that off our
Is
plate.
that gonna be for both elementary school and middle school?
Right now, it's just elementary.
Well, I'll wait till you get to the plan for middle school.
Yes, yeah. So
One other quick question.
Yes.
Who was the district-wide survey sent to?
it was sent out to all staff. It went out in a district-wide newsletter. It went out in a mandatory overview to all administrators to distribute to all of their staff. And then I sent it out manually to a few teachers too. So it went out multiple ways. So the next part, we had talked about tiered instruction. What is that going to look like? What does that mean? How do you meet the needs of these students who are all these different levels? This gives you an idea of kind of how that looks. And basically what it's basically saying is at a tier 1 level, we're doing our best to reach the students at their core beginning starting area. They need a little bit of support, not a lot, but a little bit. As somebody maybe needs more services or more in-depth enrichment, they're going even faster in their education and they're highly capable, then we have to provide more services and more intensity. As they're increasing and they're even faster and more accelerated and they're growing quicker, the intensity and the support increases. So that's what a tiered process is. And that's what we're looking at as far as how we're going to reach all these students. And again, even if they're in the same classroom, they're in those different ranges. So when we're thinking about servicing them and reaching them, we have to put it in a model that we can reach them at.
So then teachers that have gen ed kids in the classroom, is tier 1 on the gen ed kid level, or is that on the baseline level of the Hicap students?
This is just giving an example of how we'd meet a Hicap student right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who determines what tier a Hicap student falls into?
That is something that teachers and the staff would work on. Usually they have teams that come together, an SST team, or sometimes a teacher knows enough about where their kid's at that they know where they're at. As areas get more intense, you can pull in more people to help guide you as far as a team within the school to find out what more services or interventions need to be provided. So there's a whole process that goes with this. Um, it's not something that's just slapped together. There's some steps that go there to make sure that we're meeting those needs. And some of it even includes in the discussion with the parents, so they have input on it also. Yes.
So I find it interesting, that it almost is opposite of a gen ed tier, pyramid, where
Hmm.
we would take, and I just want to clarify because it seems so opposite. Like tier one for us would be 90, 95 or 90% of the students, we're meeting the needs for these 90% of the students. And then the next level, the tier two, are additional supports
Mhm.
for them to be successful.
Yep.
But not necessarily, but you're saying it would be additional supports to accelerate them, not just to be successful with the tier, with the instruction. That's
Where
what
they are.
feels
No.
backwards to me,
Right.
but
No, I see what you're saying, but what we're saying with tier one, 80 to 90% of a highly capable student's support should be covered right there in the general instructional classroom,
okay.
that we should be able to meet it with the different items and supports that we provide them,
Okay.
right? Now, we have those kids that are the high flyers, they need even more. They gave them, this highly capable student, this much work, didn't work, they need even more. We give them more support and services as far as the tier two. Student that reaches that and they need even more, we kick it up and we add more support and services. So it just keeps building to ensure that we're meeting their needs at their levels.
But is it support or acceleration? That's the part that confused me.
It can
It
be,
sounded like you were accelerating those kids.
it can be either or. It's what they need. So in some aspects, it could be acceleration. In some aspects, maybe they need more enrichment. We'll have to see as we assess with the kids what their needs are.
In
Yep.
order to see how these tiers are fitting into a normal class, could you tell me, like, if there's a class of 30 students and then we reintegrate all the high cap kids, spread them out, how many high cap kids are actually in that 30-person class? I don't understand that. Like, how many kids would end up being in a general classroom at this point?
In a gen ed class or a
Yes.
gen ed school, and they,
So like the ones that elect not to go to the self-contained classroom.
Well, I
is that what
mean,
you're saying?
I'm still confused as to whether or not that exists. If there is a self-contained classroom, then those tiers seems to already be how some of the high cap functions as it is, because everyone has a level of achievement they get to.
Mhm.
If
Yep.
this is a way to make a student thrive in a general classroom where they've been moved into, I'm just trying to understand, like, sometimes we need to learn with other people,
Mhm.
but
No, that's true.
but
Very much so.
if you're in a classroom, so that's why I'm saying, are there 5 or are there 10 in a 30, or is there 2 or 3? Because if you have some tier 3 kid and a tier 1 kid, it might be well beyond their peers, but then they're not even peers with each other, and so they wouldn't be able to bounce off each
You're
other,
right.
because people can
You're right.
learn together like that.
You're right. And what you're pointing out is that the system is differentiated very much so. And you're saying, how can we put them in this little square box?
What I want to know is those that,
But let
You
me
know the
finish.
math?
Yes, I know what you're saying. And that's why I'm saying you have to be versatile and it's going to have to depend on each school. Just like you said, some might have 5, some might have 2, some might be at this level, some might be at that level. That's where we have to have a system where we can look at all that and try to pull it together the best we can. But we have to look at all those areas. It's not as easy as just grabbing all high cap kids, grouping them together, and then we're good to go. It doesn't work like that. And what may work at that school, you go down the street to another one and their demographics are different. It doesn't work like that over there. So that's why we have to be open to that. So if we were to look at a school that is general ed, that has a few kids spread out. Maybe you could cluster a few in a grade level if there's enough. Maybe you could do pull out with a few, where a few are pulled out at a certain time of the week and they're getting differentiated enrichment. Maybe you're pushing in with different instruction where you're providing those enrichment supports so their lessons are being extended for those kids while they're in the general ed classroom. There's multiple variations of it. So it's not, there's multiple steps to cover all those, but those are things that every school can look at and design, but it's gonna fluctuate too, because every year is gonna look different as we get different kids. Yes. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Yes.
When a couple slides ago, you said that there were different universities helping out with this HICAP program.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we asking different states to help us figure out what we need to do with our HICAP program?
Excellent question. Yeah, because the good thing to do when you're always trying to look at stuff is just to get a broad range of how other people may view it and look at it just to get different points of view. If you only get one point of view, it's very myopic. It's only one, and you might hear or find something else out that's out here, but you don't see it if you're only looking here. So that's the purpose, just to consider those other options, consider those other ideas. You definitely have to see if it fits. Just because it works over here doesn't mean it works here, but at least you have now like a bigger menu to select from. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Sorry,
great
to this
question.
point, did anyone give any negative feedback?
As with
Like
which
those of
part?
you have a big list of groups, did any of those people say, like, it says they gave you feedback, was it like, yeah, this is awesome? Was it negative? Like, you didn't really elaborate on that?
No, they gave feedback as we were putting everything together, and that feedback was used. Parts were re-edited, revised, and that brought us to the closest one that I think has got everyone's opinion and feedback in it. Yeah, because the first few revisions, this has been being worked on for a while. It's not like it was one rendition was whipped out and then it was done. It's been worked on multiple times and reviewed multiple times. So yes, that was taken in consideration. Yes, ma'am.
So I just need to clarify and make sure I understood what you said. Did you say tier one is gonna meet 80% of highly capable students?
The way the model is set up is normally at a tier one level that they should get 80 to 90% in general of their needs met for 80 to 90% of uh, what they need as a highly capable student. That's just the general model of how it works. But we know that there are those that need more. And if they need more, that 80 to 90% general enrichment and support wouldn't be enough, and we have to kick it up. So it's just more of, I guess, a way of thinking that if we're working and providing services at this level and we're meeting quite a few of the kids' needs, we're always going to have some that are here. So what are we going to do with these kids? And then we're going to have some that are here. And what are we going to do with these? Because this isn't supporting them enough. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, but what I'm trying to clarify is with this tier one model, would those students be in the gen ed classroom? Because it says differentiation, UDL, cluster grouping, flexible grouping, high cap specialist collaboration with PLCs. That seems to me, talent development, classroom SEL. So that sounds like the majority, you're saying 80 to 90% of kids, if I'm understanding correctly, would be in the gen ed classroom, and those would be the ways they would be served in the gen ed classroom?
Now, let's do this. Let me finish and tell the whole picture here, and I think that'll help explain some of those points, and then we can always come back around to it, because I think we're missing part of the story here. We're about partway through, and we're already at 4:55, so I'm supposed to like knock this out in 5 minutes, which is going to be rough, but let me see. I kind of talked about this, about that we have the different components associated with the enrollment or the identification that was put together by the multidisciplinary selection committee, that we have the universal assessment, the referral process, the identification, an appeals process, and a progress monitoring process, and then an exit process. And those items have been included in the new procedure that have been outlined. And Just moving on. Now we get into the service models that you were talking about. So there's three that have been established thus far. Service model 1, specialized and advanced, self-contained. Service model 2, personalized pathways and enrichment and intervention. And then service model 3, personalized pathways through enrichment and advancement for secondary. So if we go to service model 1, that would be the ones that are self-contained that you would have at Pinewood and or Liberty. Those are going to be the ones that are going to be very accelerated, very fast-paced, and you'd want to let the parents know that. This is an opt-in. You can do this, but these guys are moving quick and moving fast.
Self-contained services is the same as self-contained classes or not?
Yeah, I mean, that's the preferred goal is to get just what we had, self-contained.
So that means if an identified student can opt in or out, then that would mean that a gen ed student should have the same opportunity.
So opt out,
If
being in
we're
that
gonna
model.
move fast, which we need to move fast to meet the needs of the class, it's not, see what I'm saying? Like, we have to make this clear to our school board and our executive directors that we have to be fair and student-centered and do what's best for kids with this. And we can't be playing around with who's in those classes. They need to be placed appropriately.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you for clarifying that for me.
And those are being offered at Pinewood and Liberty?
Self-contained?
Yes.
Yes. Service model 2 is personalized pathways, which is enrichment and intervention. This would be K through 5 for general ed. Anybody else who's maybe doesn't want to go at that fast pace, that they're in the general ed, maybe they don't want to travel to Pinewood or Liberty, they like their community area. So the other schools that have to provide services, we would have this model set up for them. And then the last model is for secondary. And same thing, that we would be identifying pathways and services for those students at all middle schools. So when they do get out of elementary, that they're able to go in those pathways at the secondary level and then proceed to receive their services there.
So all these are gonna be offered at all 3 middle schools
No,
Yes.
next year.
with tier.
You're gonna have highly capable trained teachers at all 3 middle schools next year.
No, what we're going to have is pathways for the students, so they are able
So
to
they
get
have
in the
to be
courses.
Independent learners, they have to be self-directed in moving through the Hicap program.
I'm not understanding what you mean by that.
Understand what I mean?
I understand what you're meaning. You're saying they're basically in charge of their own learning because they're not gonna have a teacher that's highly capable at the 3
To
middle
provide
schools
those
that
services.
can provide the services.
The courses that you're speaking of are AP classes and honor
That's
classes.
not the same thing as Hicap classes.
But that's,
The teachers teach highly capable students, have training, specialized training. That's what you're talking about, right? You had designated a lot of funding towards the training for the highly capable teachers,
Mhm.
correct?
But
Yep.
no one
So
exists.
AP classes are not Hicap teachers.
What I'm saying is we have those classes that we'd be placing everyone in based on their need, and the support will
So
be
if they
provided
needed a
to the
Hicap teacher,
educators.
they could go to Cedar Crest,
No, they go to their assigned zone school.
but their assigned school doesn't have Hicap trained teachers.
Which is what that budget chunk was for, right, for teaching them to be professional.
Yes, to provide that. And so that support needs to be provided, and
And
that's
it's gonna be in place by September of next year.
a lot of it already is in place at the other schools. I've been working with Miss Walker, who's over secondary, and those pieces are there. So
So
we
they
are,
want Hicap training then?
I think you're pulling two different things together.
But at the secondary level, they may not opt. They may still be Hicap students, but they may not opt to go into a Hicap program.
And that's fine, but right now they don't have the opportunity to opt into the Cedar Crest program either.
Yeah, we're being
That's in
told,
middle school.
In middle school,
You're talking
absolutely.
about in middle school.
I'm talking about
But
just
I'm-
middle
But I'm
school.
thinking in high school, when you mentioned AP and
No,
having.
he
the-
mentioned AP
he's
for middle
having
school.
the-
we're
Right.
talking about middle school.
Let me
Yeah.
finish.
We're talking about middle school.
I can But when, at the high school level, when we're talking about AP and having access to those college courses, that is what students are looking for so that they can progress on to college. So
Yeah,
now
agreed.
our
Thank
concern
you.
is that middle school area. So Brandon, do we have Hicap teachers at the middle school area?
There are ones that have went through training, like Ms. Bloom said, and there's ones that are working at the other schools that are our good teachers, and they are providing our AP and honor classes. I've already put together a professional learning collaborative, and that group is meeting and pulling those resources together. So it will be more uniform because that was one of the requests. So there's consistency. And the other item that was a big one that came up when discussing with the collaborative is when kids have been coming in the past that are highly capable, it's almost automatic, like they're just placed in an AP class, they're placed in an honors roll class, and because they're high cap with a high cap teacher or whatever, they have not been being successful in that because they've been placed at a level that is above their actual learning level. And so I know we're seeing them all functioning at this level, not again going back to the tiers. Some are here, some are here, some are here. We can't all just push them in to one level classroom to make that work. It's not. It's actually not functioning. So in that,
Completely, and my
so
concern though is, yes, we should give those kids an opportunity that
Yeah.
don't wanna go into the AP classes, that don't wanna go into the high cap
Yeah,
classes.
just if
definitely
it
need an
doesn't- yeah,
opportunity.
yeah.
But we also need to give those kids an opportunity that want to go into high cap classes, to go into the high cap classes.
I will say that the instruction is the same
It
though.
is not the same. It is not the same. The teachers will tell you it is not the same.
Okay. Well, again, we've got a collaborative working on that of all those teachers, and we're pulling that together.
And it's
So-
gonna be ready by the fall, so that the incoming fifth graders will be ready in sixth grade to go to high cap at Totem and Marysville Middle.
Like I said, I talked to Ms. Walker. A lot of the systems that you're worried about are already in place. They have been for a while.
No, they're not. They're not
So-
the same level of classes at all three middle schools. You admitted this in one of our meetings.
No, what we're saying is we want that instructional level, yes, to be consistent across the
Absolutely.
board. We want
But
the,
we can't do that by
alignment.
September.
we're working on that. I
And
don't
while
know
we're
what-
working on it, what are we doing for those children?
For the kids.
Are we gonna figure it out after they miss a year of school that was not as good for them? That's, I think, the concern I see here is that it feels like, let's just do it. We're not gonna get it all nailed out, but we're just gonna do it.
Because I understand there's a three-year plan. I understand things don't happen overnight. It takes time. There's time for training, there's money for training, there's all the different, even developing the collaborative and sharing the curriculum.
Mhm.
So my concern is, what are we doing for those kids over the next 3 years till we have it available at all three campuses? Because if there's a 3-year plan to get to the same place, what are we doing in year 1 and 2?
That's building that. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you with
What are the kids gonna
that.
do while we're building that?
We building on them? I don't.
No,
Just don't let them slip through the cracks. And I want to also bring in another aspect to this. So you talked earlier about meeting kids' social emotional needs.
Hmm.
And I think we all understand from our own experiences growing up that middle school is a very difficult time for kids.
Mhm.
So for those kids who are in current high cap, self-contained courses, classes in elementary school, is there an opportunity for those children for social emotional needs to remain together and they can choose to go to Marysville Middle, they can choose to go to Cedar Crest, they can choose to go wherever they want, versus being told, because your boundary school is Schultes, you have no choice, you can't go to Cedar Crest with the majority of your cohort.
not right now. They would go with their
So-
zone
So
we're
school.
talking
neurodivergent
about-
children
yeah,
that
we're
have to
talking
break
about-
apart from their cohort.
Splitting up kids who've been in self-contained courses,
For
classes.
5 years. some of
For
them.
5 years, and then be basically placed into a middle school that doesn't have highly capable, trained teachers starting next year. That's what I'm
I
hearing. And you're
guess-
working on it.
No, no.
So I have a question. Would those students all go to, if we didn't do this plan, would all those students go to a specific middle school?
That's how it was,
They
that's how it was
used to.
until 2 years ago.
I just want, I'm just asking.
No, I just told you.
We understand that there's a lot of staff that's new to this district, and that's why I think a lot of this is really boiling us up, is because there seems to be this idea that because there's been some additional policy changes at the state level, we've had to completely destroy the entire program that was in place before. And no one's looking at the issues of social emotional needs of these kids. And that's what I'm talking about, is I understand, I think we all understand there has to be changes, and we're not
Yeah.
opposed to the changes.
Okay.
What we're opposed to is waiting 3 years and having our kids suffer until you guys get your ducks in a row and have all of your teachers professionally developed into high cap teachers. And
So,
then they're basically
what-
gonna be split up and dealing with the
Well-
additional issues of being introduced into middle
Yeah,
school.
because you have an
What-
exit plan for the actual thing, right? You created an exit plan for the new way. What's the exit plan from self-contained? Like,
I still didn't feel
it's
like.
not
I got
gonna
my
be the
question.
same, like, it's almost like all these kids are moving into a new school, like, it's like, no one wants to be the new kid at school sometimes, like, most kids don't like that. So you take this self-contained group and you go, just put you to the wind, to your boundaries. What's the exit plan for that, for their social, emotional needs? Like, because I don't see how that's gone with. I see a vague tiered system that I don't see any actual steps. I mean, I hear one teacher's name, but in middle school, you go to like 6 classes, that's 6 teachers. One teacher can't handle that stuff, right?
You're right, one
That-
teacher
that-
can't
That
handle
doesn't
it.
make any of us feel good, I don't think.
So what I can do, if you want, I can work on seeing if we can bring the collaborative together. And maybe with the administrators in all middle schools to discuss this with you along with Ms. Walker. And maybe they can answer it.
Who's included in the collaborative?
Right now, we have people from Cedar Crest and, what is it, Totem?
Are they teachers?
Yes.
Can I ask a quick question? Have you been to Totem Middle School or Marysville Middle School? Have you actually been there and toured the campus, gone in any of the classrooms, been a part of the environment? Because on state testing, it's like in the teens of the students that are passing, for like 15 to 20% that are passing the SBA in math, and teens to low 20s for the students passing ELA in those schools, in all the schools. So my concern is, I gotta be honest, I don't feel like we're being super transparent here with what the parents are gonna get for their kids in the middle schools. Because they're not gonna be in a class where a teacher can teach kids that can't read and support kids that need to be challenged and accelerated. And I mean, you said one minute you said there's AP classes for those kids, but then you turned around and said, not all Hicap kids can handle AP classes.
I don't know if those kids.
So I don't really feel like we're being super honest, because if you were to go to Marysville Middle School and spend a day in an ELA classroom or a math classroom or Totem or any, actually Cedar Crest as well, if it's not a Hicap class, this isn't gonna happen. What you're suggesting isn't gonna work, because that's not the majority of those kids, and no teacher can do it all. Especially when you're not giving teachers supports. So, I mean, let's just be truthful about what's what. And have you been there? Have you been in any classes in those schools? Because I've never seen you at Pinewood, other than maybe once.
I've been there more than once, but yes, I have. So,
Via Zoom, or have you actually sat in a classroom? Because there's a big difference between talking to a teacher via Zoom and sitting in a classroom and witnessing and being a part of what the kids are learning.
I've been a little bit of both. What we can do is, because we're out of time, we're at what time? 5, 10, 11. That's pretty much the overview of the plan. The other part was building up the rest of the teachers and working on that collaborative as you wanted and putting those structures into place. The specifics of the areas that you're concerned about, like I said, I can bring in Ms. Walker, I can bring in the middle school principals to answer some of those a little bit more specifically. That's their school.
About
So when
teachers. Probably should bring teachers, because they're the ones that are gonna work with the kids.
I will,
Well, I think there are a couple things. I think I hear that we're talking about teacher training.
mhm,
So bringing back to this group, what the plan is for teacher
mhm,
training. What's the timeline? So that they have some level of comfort of understanding that the timeline is going to meet the start of the school year.
mhm,
So that would be one action step. And any other solutions that you can bring to our group so that we can try to have that implemented through the other departments would be very helpful. Figuring out, we want to work together to figure out how we can come up with those solutions, not trying to create other things. But I hear some things that I would take back and say to the team, like,
Yep.
maybe we need to reconsider X, Y, and Z.
mhm.
We had a question here from our student.
Oh,
Can we
yes,
acknowledge him?
yes.
So what is the difference between HiCap and AP classes, and why did we get rid of HiCap in middle schools?
So I can ask, I'll link to a middle school teacher. The AP classes and honor classes basically function at that level. From what I understand before, and I wasn't here, so if I'm wrong, let me know. The high cap for middle school was a cohort of students that kind of stayed together.
Yeah, so like
In
the
this-
Pinewood and elementary students that were able to stay together as they went into middle school.
Okay, so imagine that, a group still continuing in middle school, all taking the same ELA and math classes like
They
together?
choose to. No, math, actually, Mrs. Thomas she actually is amazing at recognizing that not all high cap kids are advanced in math.
Okay,
So she actually has already worked out a system for helping to place the kids in the appropriate math class.
Mhm.
It hasn't been honored every year, but I know that she's got a way of making sure that these kids are where they should be.
Is that only at Cedar Crest?
I think the other middle schools use the same pathway.
Yeah, we did the same thing at Southern.
Okay, do they have all the same levels of classes for math at all three middle schools? So the kids that are in the advanced 8th grade math as 7th graders are able to go to the high school for 8th grade from all three middle schools?
They have, the pathway is there, whether there's kids taking those pathways.
And
Or is it
there's
reasonable-
teachers teaching all those different levels of classes at all the schools.
Say again.
But there's teachers teaching all different
Yes.
levels of classes. Okay.
mhm,
The transportation's been an issue though for some families to access getting their kids from the middle school to the high school for the higher level math.
Correct.
We've had one student in 2 years.
We've had one student. Well,
That doesn't sound like a system issue.
that's just all that were at that level though. There was only
Well,
one
that's
from
the-
each
Those
of
are the
them.
ones, like you said before, people didn't want to join the high cap because.
No.
it was
No,
a
they-
strain on-
no, I'm sorry.
They started at a higher level.
That's
in-
not this year.
These were the top tier that they were able to take high
You
school,
said you
so
had
there's only
one- I know,
two.
you said you had one student in each. What I'm saying is,
That's the kids that right now are in 8th grade going to the high school for geometry.
yeah,
Everything else we can handle.
but I mean, when I was in middle school, we had geometry in middle school,
We have different.
so we had it in class.
We have the teachers different.
That was Mountain Crest High School, which is one of the worst high schools in the state.
So can we do this? Because I know we're going over time and there's a lot of good information and I don't want to let it go. And one of the other aspects that I put out there, and I don't know if it's reached you all or not yet, but that we wanted to make sure that we established or bring in the involvement of the high cap parents on a consistent basis. So having these meetings more often, having you involved in,
Yes, I'm concerned about what you're proposing the board take action on Monday. So it sounds like there's a lot of things that are not settled with the high cap parents at this point. We have a lot of questions still. So what exactly are you asking the board to take action on Monday?
the procedure that the task force put together.
Mhm.
So that one going forward. And then I have to present the district-wide annual plan, which is going over in general the service models that I was discussing and outlining the tiered system so we can make sure we meet each student's needs and ensuring that we're assessing all the kids, all the universal assessments and steps that I went through. That
So pretty
big
much
picture.
everything that you
Yeah.
presented tonight
Mhm.
is what they're gonna be voting on to put in place for next year.
Well, it's for this year. This plan's late because we had to get the procedure done. Normally, a district-wide plan's done at the beginning of the year, but we wanted to get the procedure done first because that also drives the plan, right? So it took us a while to get the committee meeting and all that together to finish that. Once that got done, it was almost happening simultaneously. The plan's put together, so we're presenting it now. But everyone knew that that was kind of where we were at. Yes, ma'am.
Brandon,
Yeah.
I have a request. I think Amy hit on something really important, and that was that you're giving HICAP parents the option to opt in or opt out of HICAP classes. I think it is imperative that gen ed kids, parents, be given the same option. So if I have a student that is being moved to a HICAP class because that meets the budget needs, because that's the only reason to do it, then I should be able to say, no,
Yes.
it's not for my kid.
Correct.
And I feel like if you do not provide parents that option, that's discrimination.
Yes.
And we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah, agreed.
And
True.
I think that is, at least makes it, give parents a voice in the process, instead of just the HICAP parents a voice, the gen ed parents get a voice.
Very fair.
Because the big concern is, as you said, students have to move very quickly and very fast. And the other thing that we're not talking about here, if you take a 5th grade class and they're getting HICAP instruction on a 6th grade math level, and all of a sudden these 5th grade students, they're losing a year of instruction. Because now they're having to do 6th grade math too, but they never got the 5th grade math. So we seem to really be forgetting how this impacts our gen ed students. So 4th grade students are doing 5th grade math, and you put 4th grade gen ed kids in there. Now all of a sudden they have to lose their entire year of 4th grade math and go from 3rd grade to 5th grade with no 4th grade math.
Or you just teach 2 years in that.
That doesn't work.
Well, that's why it's a split class,
Yeah.
and that's why they get half the instruction, so they're still getting.
So those things I can bring up to the executive leadership who's over elementary, because I don't make all these decisions myself, and bring that up as a point of an area that you guys want to point out. The other part of continuing to connect with all of you and have meetings such as this, as we continue to do that, I'll send out that information. As far as this one being late, I understand that, but I have to go through my process to get approval. I can't just go
Right, but we're
do
sitting
what I
here
want.
waiting. We've
I
been
know.
waiting since October
No,
for
I
something to
know.
happen,
I
right?
know.
So
You got a valid point.
if
I get it.
you're wanting to cultivate a collaborative community.
Yep.
Right, then please.
Prior
you know,
notice. Yep,
More advanced notice, so
Yep.
parents can arrange to be here.
I agree.
Having a plan to look at and, you know, digest
Mm-hmm.
before coming here so that we're not sitting here trying to read, you know,
Yeah.
8-point font on your presentation. That's a bullet point of what you want to present. That's my concern, is there's a lot of stuff lost in your presentation that should be there in the details of the information that we should receive ahead of you meeting with us.
Okay.
We haven't been silent on this. We've been here since October, and I know you know that. So, you know, at this point, you presenting on Monday to the board and asking them to pass this is literally, to me, feels like a slap in the face. Because
Okay.
I've been waiting, and you know, you promised back in October, November that there would be periodic updates to the community, and there has not been.
That was the purpose of the task force.
The task
Pulling that
force
together.
doesn't work for the district, okay? The task force is here to help you,
Mhm.
but you're the director of the program, and I think as a parent, I would expect you to reach out to the HICAP community
Okay.
and provide those updates. Additionally, I don't recall you sending anything out about this meeting from the district, correct?
Correct.
So anybody who knows about this meeting tonight knows about it only from Karen.
Okay.
A third party.
Okay.
That's weird.
So
And that,
cultivating a collaborative community does not seem like a goal here when we don't see actions that back that up.
All right.
And would you mind
We will work on
answering
that.
the rest of my question, please?
Sure.
For why we got rid of middle school high cap?
To be honest, that was before me. I don't know for sure a specific reason of why that was done that way. I can only assume maybe it was because of the busing costs. Maybe it was because of the transportation, but I don't know. To be honest, I don't. I wasn't here.
you
All right.
can see improvements, Brandon, obviously, right? That needs to be done. You know, it's adult talking to another adult. I lived here about 8 years, ran a business, 7 of those, and I've never heard of, you know, unfortunately, some bad things about this town and the where it's kind of going, and nobody seems to want to pick it up, you know. So you being out of town from Montana, I'm from Virginia, but anyways, it's just not what, people need to get together and not just be against each other. I appreciate you having a meeting, yes, absolutely, it was a little bit late, let's be honest, but you had it, you heard from us, I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
And that's a good start, and we just want high cap, general students, everybody to get through school with a little bit of easement and a heads up. And I think that's it, you know. And
I agree, and thank you for that. And I hear what you're saying, and I'll work harder on those aspects of it. I will, and I have the same desire. Believe me, I don't sit there and want to put stuff together so it makes it worse. The goal for me is to build it up. That's where my passion's at. That's why I focused my career on this stuff. So please know that also. And that's a definite goal of mine too. So,
And I would appreciate hearing from you on Monday when you do present this to the board,
okay,
that you're going to be working with high cap parents continually
okay,
about some of our existing concerns with the plan that you're presenting to them on Monday.
okay,
Because I'm not on board with a
Okay.
lot of this. I'm really not.
okay,
I do understand that there needs to be changes, but I really would like a commitment from you that you're going to listen and collaborate with this community and come to a real solid place where we feel good and we feel heard and we feel like our students' needs are being heard,
okay,
met, and addressed before you put something in place that's so set in stone, we have just wasted the last 8 months.
okay. So just state publicly that we'll be working collaboratively.
And if there's adjustments that need to be made to this plan, that you're willing to bring it back to the board for that adjustment to be made and approved. Because look, I know you have a 3-year plan, but like 3 years is 3 years for these kids. If you can't move it along and our kids are really disadvantaged because of this time frame,
Mm-hmm.
there has to be some concessions on the district's part to say, all right, we're gonna allow, at least for a time frame while this is being implemented, for high cap parents who have kids entering into middle school in the next 3 years, an opportunity to go to Cedar Crest to be taught by the existing high cap teachers.
Yeah.
I don't think that is completely out of the question to ask for. I really don't. I'm not saying scratch your idea. I'm not saying don't put, these things in the other middle schools. I agree, they need to be there. And I think
Okay.
a lot of people would be happy to have more highly capable, developed teachers. But what do we do until we get there? That's the biggest concern. My son is going to be in 5th grade next year. So if this isn't done, I'm one of the parents who's gonna be sitting here going, well, I guess you get to learn sixth grade math again. Or you get to sit in ELA that doesn't meet your needs.
I hear what you're saying. I do. I want to throw pie in the sky, but I still think we can do it. It's sitting together and outlining some of these things.
Right,
I
but we
think-
don't have that information, and the person who you keep referring to talk about that isn't here. So I guess that's the other issue that I have too, is
Mhm.
if some of what you're presenting to us is dependent upon other directors in the district,
Mhm.
or dependent upon other decision makers and other programs that need to be addressed, why can you not bring those people in so that those questions, they don't have to come to you, Brandon? Make your job a little easier. Direct them to another person who's gonna be here to answer our questions. Because you're saying this is already in place, this is already happening. We wanna know more.
Okay.
We want that person to answer a
The
question.
specifics of
Yes.
those pieces. Okay.
You shouldn't have to stand up there and take the fire, right? Make your job a little easier and bring some backup. We have other questions because this isn't.
No,
just
those are good
you're
points.
telling us.
Yeah, to take the fire.
Yeah, it's part of it to get my feet burned, but no, I hear what you're saying, and believe me, that is a goal. I'm liking the discussion even right now. Again, my thing is to try to get it the best it can be. I'm not going to sit there and fib and say I'm a magician and I can take something to fix it overnight, but I'm going to work really hard to do it. That's just what I do. Um, but yeah, I'm with you on that. Having more meetings if we have to, that's fine. Also, just to let you know, my phone's always open too. It's two-way. So if you don't hear from me or you want some, call me. I pick up. I won't say no. Anytime you want. So I'm committed to working with you guys on that, to bring it together. The thing I can do to set up for next time is write out an agenda like you want, of more specific of maybe what the next high cap parent meeting will be about, maybe to answer specific questions that I've heard thus far, like middle school. What's it going to be at? Specifics. What?
Yeah, because my kid is one of those kids going to sixth grade this coming year, so.
Knowing
You
about
have to make a
the,
choice when we don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
And if you
But
know
at this
about,
point, he doesn't get to make a choice.
at 10th Street, they already had the entry for that, which is like, we don't even have a plan presented to the board to be approved, but you already had to make a choice about going to 10th Street. Like, is 10th Street opting out of high cap? Like, I really don't understand, because I also have a kid going to 10th Street right now, so I know the different spectrums. I have a kid way to the left, way
yeah,
to the right, and one kid is going to 10th Street, which has
okay.
like 6 teachers.
I don't know about 10th Street. I can look into
Well,
that one too, though,
That
and get
blows
you
my
some.
mind if we don't know about 10th Street.
I know about it, but I don't know about the specific thing that you're speaking of as far as how
And
it's
I know
functioning
like
for that.
some of my kids' classmates are not confident about going to Totem, so they also applied to go to 10th Street, and some of them are going there.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's sad because I know that there's only so many spots at 10th Street, but 10th Street is being used as a scapegoat right now to
Yeah.
avoid going to some of these other
Totem,
middle schools.
yeah.
The kids are going there just because they're scared of this other school.
Yes.
But I can tell you that I was advised not to send my highly capable kids to 10th Street because they don't have math up to the level that the other middle schools have it. So it would have been a disadvantage to my children to go to 10th Street because they wouldn't have been able to get to the point they could take geometry as an 8th grader. So it isn't the best option for the high cap students either, because if they have accelerated math, they don't offer that level.
So, okay, great points. That, I think, again, that's where I need to bring in the principals
Yeah.
to answer those, because I don't work there.
Right.
I'm not going to fib. I don't know the ins and outs of the specifics that they're doing that could help explain a couple of those items that you're outlining.
I just have a question.
Yep.
So one of the pieces of the plan said, like, for example, if a student went to 10th Street and they didn't offer geometry, is it the district's position that we will transfer to where they do offer geometry, or we will provide that support for those students? Is that the district's position?
For middle school, is that what you're saying? Like if they're functioning?
10th Street.
If
If
they're
they're
at 10th
They
Street,
can't get to geometry at 10th Street. They don't
Right.
have the level below geometry.
she's asking if they would transport them where they could.
Where they
Oh,
could
okay.
get to.
They have a high school
Right.
there.
So
Seventh
one
and
year,
seventh grade.
can we get to the high school to get geometry? Is there an option?
Yeah, because they have two schools, Legacy and Heritage there, right next to
So
there.
is there an option on that campus?
Right,
that
for
would
the higher level.
support the higher level math, the higher level English, even if they are enrolled in that school? So have we thought about, because all it sounds to me, you guys all know, I'm from a special education lens, so it's not very different, is that I'm looking for an individualized plan. Right?
Yeah, you're right.
Right,
Yes,
so
yep.
if that's what you're proposing, then we should be able to support what the individualized.
Yeah,
Historically,
good point.
that's what they've done. If a student takes a placement test and then they get into math ahead, they end up 2 years ahead, they will bus them to the high school.
Yep.
That's what they've done historically.
Yep.
But when they had, it has to do with certification, when they've had math, high school math teachers in the middle school. my
Yeah,
son
then
took
then it could be
geometry in eighth
covered.
grade.
Yeah, you're right. Then it could be covered by the teacher, but if we don't have a certified person to teach it, then we have to outsource to the high school.
Three schools over there, we should be able
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know if they're real familiar with the school, because I'm not sure. So
Well, I
one of them has a
believe
5% attendance rate.
That doesn't mean that we don't offer the certified staff. And I am very familiar with the administration over there.
I do very
I'm not secondary, so I'm not going to.
Is there anybody else still online? I've just left
I
this
have
thing
a
up.
question, Brandon, in
What-
your.
one
agenda-
second.
in your-
Is there somebody still on there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
both Priscilla and Andrea are.
Oh, okay. I'll leave it on then. Sorry. Go ahead.
In the proposal or the agenda, it says multi-age classroom. So can you explain to me what that means? Because multi-age to me is 3 or more grade levels, and we don't have multi-age classrooms for our contract with MEA.
Which part in the procedure are you talking about? You said you saw that or
Well, I
within
looked at what you had attached for the board meeting on Monday.
the big thick document or?
Well,
Okay,
I
I'm
don't
just
know. I
trying
don't remember, so I'm
I've
trying
read
to-
a lot. My brain's tired, that's all.
It says multi-age classroom.
So for me, right off the top of my head, I'd say that that's like a split classroom. There's something that has multiple ages in it.
Then you need to change it to a split classroom, because multi-age is not defined in our contract. It actually says we do not teach multi-age classes.
Okay, so the language
And
is
so
off.
multi-age, like in Snohomish, they have multi-age ICAP classes that are 4, 5, 6 in every elementary school.
Oh, like 3 and, okay, I see what
Right.
you're
So
saying.
that's considered multi-age,
3
3 grade
versus
levels. And
2
so
or
when
a
I saw
split.
multi-age, I was like, all right, so now are they talking about throwing 3 grade levels together? If it's a split class, then it needs to say split, because that's 2 classes, 2 grade levels opposed to 3.
Okay, I can look at where that part is at.
Because I know for sure our contract language says we do not have multi-age classrooms.
Okay. Fair
So
point.
I just wanted to
I
get
think
that.
we should have that conversation though, because we need to be sure that the contract language is not just specifically gen ed or.
Yeah, those are things I have to look into.
No, it's not just gen ed. I'm a union rep, it's multi-age classes.
I just want to.
Well, I want to make sure we're not throwing gen ed kids into a high cap class either.
All points that I have on my long list
We
to
definitely
do.
need to be able to opt out.
Is there anything else that we could cover tonight that you feel I haven't that you want to voice so I make sure that I hear it and I do my best to try to get to it?
I do want you to hear, thank you for presenting this tonight. I know probably isn't the easiest thing to come in front of us, but we do appreciate,
High cap, high achieving parents.
yeah, and very critical ones.
Yes.
Thank you for coming tonight. I really do hope that you are able to, hear us, collaborate more with us, more notice would be great.
Yes, ma'am.
And, bringing in, like I said, some of those other resources, I think would be very helpful to move the needle on maybe some of the issues that we still have.
Yep. Fair
Thank you.
point. Fair point. So we're good for at least this evening? Okay. All right, so people online, I'm gonna turn it off. The discussion's kind of ended for now, and then we'll send update notices on an agenda. And I don't know if I can ask for any help on this. I don't know who all of the high cap parents are. So when I sent, who do I send it out to? So,
All the kids should be identified as highly capable in the district, correct?
right,
Is there a
Well,
listserv guy where it's
I'm-
all
I'm asking because I don't know if the high cap group
Well,
is
and-
this, or do you want me to invite everyone? I
I
mean,
think equitably,
Everyone?
everybody who
Because
has
there,
an
because my
identified
husband's
high
not
cap
on
student
Facebook, so if
needs
it wasn't
to
for
be
me, he would never know about it.
Okay.
Stuff, so we need to
Okay.
make sure even parents that aren't on on Facebook have an opportunity
Okay.
to attend these meetings. So I think the best thing to do is actually send it to all the parents of children that are receiving highly capable services.
Okay, sounds like a deal.
preferably with like a week's notice, because I just know that, parents can't adjust their schedule. They just can't do it within 24 hours.
We would
It's very
try
hard.
to.
Yes, we will.
That's not,
Just saying that
for you all,
because, yeah.
that's not Brandon's style. I've worked with him for years.
Yeah,
so
it's,
not his style.
things have been a little bit, just out of sorts, that's all. It's been a lot going on, a lot to work on. It'll be a lot better. I just believe it will. I feel it. I already feel things kind of falling into place, which means this stuff will go smoother and it won't be so bumpy. Just that we probably agree on probably 80, 90% of what's up there for the most part, the big chunks of the puzzle. I think that means a lot, that we have a bigger vision there, that we have a goal of that star that we're going to reach for. So I'm in. I'm going to give it my all. All right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Take care.